2. Good morning, everybody. How are you all doing? Patrick, you have to leave so soon? Only because I'm up here. Thanks so much. All right. So Leif Sawyer here. I'm the guy from Alaska, as probably a lot of you already know. I can't say that actually this time. Daniel, are you in here somewhere? Dan Kirschbaum is another fellow from Alaska. So if you run into him or you see him, say hi. Represent Alaska. I've been in Alaska 49 years. I've been working for my company, GCI Communications, for about 25. Right now doing security architecture. I spent 20 years doing network architecture. About 5 years ago, I was elected to the ARIN Advisory Council. And last year, our chair, Tina Morris, brought me on as the vice chair. I'm not sure why, but apparently it's because I can get up in front of people and speak and not look entirely nervous. So that's great. I know all of you are really interested in policy, right? How many of you are actually operators? I just want to kind of get a show of hands, like 3, 4, 5 operators out there. Perfect. So this is entirely for you, and it's because there's a lot of change in ARIN's focus these days, right? IPv4 is running out. There's a market for it, but you can't just go to the well and pull some up with your buckets. And so we've got an interesting change in our incoming policy queue, right? And it's going to wane over time, but currently, right now, it's being used to address the shortcomings in this pure transfer market and hopefully to address some database cleanup. Now, one of the things that has happened as a result of this is that the Board of Trustees has recently remanded a couple of policies back due to some fraud cases that have shown up, or because they're very difficult to implement these policies based on the impact to you, the operator community, right? And just for a little break here, a little bit about Alaska life. You can see that we have fun on our beach. And it says 49 below Fahrenheit, but that's about the same in Celsius too, right? And I think this is what it looks like right now. It's been snowing for a few days. But just a reminder, what this talk isn't about. I'm not going to go into policy text. I'm not going to try to explain or sway you over with what the language in the specific policies is. But I do want to know if you are okay with what's happening with the changes in the policy, and if you are unduly impacted, right? There's a lot of work that has to happen on the operator side, back end, to adapt to these policy changes. And I want to remind you that you're out there as operators, and even if you don't go to ARIN, you can still participate. And if you participate, we can all make policies fun again. Again, right? They were fun before, I'm sure. So, right here, our quick agenda. I'm just going to summarize what's happening on the current docket and what some of the impacts are to you. And then in the second half of it, we'll go over some of the database cleanup, WHOIS, and how that's impacting law enforcement and other abuse monitoring, and what we can do to get some of that data cleaned up. So, I mean, why? Why am I here? Because we are impacting the operator community. And the changes that are coming through ARIN policy being driven by other operators that are participating are impacting the rest of the operator community. We've got a lot of validation in WHOIS data accuracy. You've heard law enforcement talk about that probably yesterday in the afternoon sessions. A lot of the automated tooling that you have in place today to deal with records, new records being submitted, it's going to break. And that's always a painful thing when your developers have moved on. So one of the first policies I'll talk about here is one that's already been adopted by the board. It happened last year, and this is something you're probably already doing today, which is validating your point of contact emails for your organizations. And right now, you're probably clicking on that button once a year, yeah, when they come in. Or did you automate? Do you have an automated process? You're sending that through Mailman or some mail filter and having it manually click that button. That's something that, if you're not doing, absolutely you should be doing that. It makes things easier. You can log it, you can send it back, get reports on how often it's changing, or if it's failing. especially if you're managing contacts for other businesses. This is something that's happening a lot more these days. But as things progress, we get API changes, error logging, linkage breaks, so it's absolutely something you need to keep an eye out for if you start doing this automation. The next one here, when we removed reallocation requirements for residential market assignments, this is really all about, you have a small business on the other end of a cable modem, and a lot of people were sending in detailed reassignment requests. And as happens, people just type in whatever information they want, and it's never accurate. And so some of that update was breaking. And we want to make sure that people understand that they don't have to do that for these smaller assignments. Get rid of that in your tooling, and we don't have an influx of incorrect information. As the old adage goes, simplify, simplify, simplify. Where am I at? 2017-12. Okay, so this is one that was remanded back to the ARIN Advisory Council because of the impact, specific impact to the operator community. This is a big workflow change for you when we start talking about how we validate the points of contact before they go into the database. A lot of your tooling, the feedback that we got was a lot of automated tooling, expected a quick turnaround. You submitted your requests into the database and you expected it to just work and to be there. This now requires that validation to happen. And if you have a manual process where somebody has to go and click that button in the email, that's going to break that chain of events. And if you can't do records insertions until your records are validated, now the rest of your chain of events is going to break. And we've had a lot of rewrites happen recently. PPML, the Public Policy Mailing List, was just sent out some of those rewrites. It's going to be refocusing on the detailed reassignments from points of contacts and org creations, and requiring a pre-existing organization with at least one valid point of contact before you can do your detailed reassignments. Of course, there's an alternative out there that a lot of people don't know, or is the simple reassignments. And you should really be using simple reassignments now for your customers as much as possible. It's just going to simplify your workflows and help with a lot of the database cleanup. You have a lot of salespeople coming in and just quickly typing in information, maybe not validating everything. So move that forward. If you have any other questions on this particular policy, our shepherds are Christian Tassett and David Farmer. So you can look on the PPML for those two names and send them some questions if you have them directly. So 2018-5, also about organizational record creation. This one is restricting that creation to the primary business entity, so you don't have third parties coming in and trying to create new organizational records. Again, this is going to break your automated tooling that expects to be able to immediately create those org IDs. And again, using simple reassignments will help alleviate the pains in your automation. Andrew Dull and Owen DeLong are the shepherds for this policy, and you can find them again on the PPML. So for 2018-6, we're looking to clarify some of these reassignment requirements. Again, bringing back that simple reassignments message to minimize the work for your POC maintenance. And only the customer name is needed, right? As the ISP, as the operators, you already have all the information internally, but you only need to specify that customer name when you're doing that simple reassignment up into ARIN. So that helps clean up the database, keeps a lot of that unnecessary data out. It does push the responsibility of ownership tracking back to you, the organization, for law enforcement requests, but you're probably already getting those anyway. Alyssa Moore and Allison Wood are the primary and secondary shepherds for that policy. And of course, the big one in the room, the elephant, is the IPv4 waiting list. A lot of people out there are trying to get on this waiting list in hopes of getting some of those small scraps of IPv4 space returned to ARIN by either IANA or via other organizations that decide that they just want to return it for the betterment, as opposed to putting those addresses up on the free pool. So this is all part of the Number Resource Policy Manual, section 418. which describes the waitlist policy, and at least 6 different problem areas have been identified here. And that's a lot of problem areas for this. We've got a lot of proposals that are in the queue, and we are attempting to address all of these problem areas while minimizing the impact on the operator community. It's very challenging, it's been very time-consuming, but we've got a good handle on where we think this needs to go, and we're continuing to work on a basic selection menu of 2 to 3 options, which we think best represents the ideal state, which gives the operator community the best bang for their buck. And you should be seeing some more information on that coming up in April at the next ARIN meeting. So some of the questions that we're looking for, these are just sample questions, I'm not going to read them, that the operator community can think about. As you're going through all of these policies on your own time and really enjoying the fun that policy making is, how is this really impacting your business, and what can we do as policy writers to ease that burden on you? And then again, how do you expect ARIN to come back within your development cycle in terms of implementing these policies? Do you need us to wait for a longer period of time so that you can deal with spinning up a development cycle, validating everything, or is this something that you can turn around quickly because you have very good in-house developers? So that's really the big stuff there for the ARIN policies. And there's a few ways that you can provide feedback. We've got the upcoming meeting in Barbados in case you need a change from this cold weather here in San Francisco, or on the East Coast, apparently. That's April 7th through 10th in Barbados. We're gonna welcome everybody to show up. We've got these policy consultations at NANOG, or just these presentations. So the next big one will be in October. ARIN will be there. If you can't make June, where we'll probably have another presentation quite like this, but hopefully with some more information about the newer policies, at least be showing up to Austin and give us some feedback at the microphone. Get on to PPML. If you're an operator, you should be there. You should be keeping an eye on the policies that are coming out and how they're impacting you. And of course, you can always view the policies online at the URL that's provided. And I've given you the names of the shepherds, but also you'll find those online on the policies. So part 2 here is all about the database cleanup, how that impacts you, WHOIS, points of contacts. Everybody understands the importance of WHOIS. It's used everywhere, right? It's used for anti-spam, geolocation, other law enforcement, and the network history. Who was? Right? For the IPv4 market, people want to see the history of net blocks in the various regions before they go and purchase them. There we go. So I've got some statistics that were presented a few years ago, 2 years ago now, 2.5, NANOG 70. I can't divide by 3. Leslie Nobile, I know you're in the audience here. There she is in the back waving. She did a great presentation on the database statistics and cleanup. And recently gave me some new information. So we have a total, almost 1 million points of contacts in the database, right? And only 234, a quarter of them are validated. That's not a lot. And of the unvalidated ones, when you're talking 60% non-validated, non-orphaned points of contact, that's a lot of cleanup work that has to be done. So how do we get there, right? Right now it starts with that email request. You click that validate link, or you can go online, you can reply to the email. And some of those methods can be automated, as I was discussing earlier. And then you've got a nice audit trail for all of that that's happening. But the automation, unfortunately, does not solve the incorrect information. There's a lot of bad data in WHOIS. You got, I don't want to say, maybe I should say lazy operators. No, I'm not pointing any fingers, and my company's probably one of the bad ones as well, who don't go in all the time to validate and clean up their data. Orphaned records and the black ops transfers. I don't know about any of those. But what can we do about it? Right? Stop. Stop what we're doing. We gotta stop the status quo. Stop perpetuating the bad data. We have to fix our automated tooling. We have to incentivize our employees and our coworkers to fix that bad data early and fix it often. Use simple reassignments now where we can. I know it's not fun, it's not flashy, it doesn't pay us the big bucks, but it will decrease the workload down the road. And that's basically it. So just as a reminder, come to the meetings, participate on PPML. Give us feedback where you think it's going to impact you, and that helps us rewrite the policy so that it's not as burdensome upon you. Join the mailing lists, stay up to date, and just as a reminder. So thank you.